Hello, welcome to the world of literature. At World of Literature today, we would be dealing with the plot overview of Hamlet. Hamlet is one of the most famous tragedy written by William Shakespeare. Rather, Hamlet is the greatest ever tragedy written in English literature. Hamlet was written somewhere between 1599 and 1603. Hamlet happens to be the best play written in English literature. However, T.S. Eliot called it as artistic failure. In this lecture, we will be dealing with the plot of Hamlet, wherein we will go through the story of the play Hamlet. Now, coming to the story of the Hamlet, coming to the plot of the Hamlet, Hamlet is divided into 5 acts and into various scenes. Each act has different number of scenes. There is no consistency in the number of scenes which would have been maintained by William Shakespeare. Hamlet begins at a platform near the castle known as Elsinore. The first scene of the play takes place somewhere at 12 midnight, and we have Bernardo and Francisco exchanging duties, and there is entry of Marcellus and Horatio. Since for previous 2 nights, Francisco and Bernardo had seen some strange happenings at Elsinore. So today they have called upon Marcellus and Horatio to witness those scenes themselves. Marcellus had also seen the apparition a few nights ago, and he told about that apparition to the Horatio, but Horatio dismissed his story as fancy, as something that had no real grounds, and was but a creation of his own imagination. But as Horatio is telling them that what you are saying is all the product of your fancy, the ghost appears. Ghost resembles most to the late King Hamlet, the king of Denmark. When Horatio sees the ghost, he trembles at the sight. And as ghost exits, Horatio tells Marcellus and the others present there that he resembles most to our late king in armor, in valor, and in demeanor. In this particular scene, Ghost appears almost 3 times, and on all the occasions, Horatio attempts to talk to him. Since Marcellus says, Horatio, thou art a scholar, talk to him. But Ghost does not respond to any of the questions posed to him by Horatio. And when eventually the ghost exits, Marcellus and Horatio, they sit and talk. Marcellus says that, is there anyone on this earth who can tell me as to why these cannons are blazing at night and why we have the apparition of our late king roaming at dead hours of the night? And Horatio says, I can. And then Horatio talks about the relationships of Denmark with Norway, how they have been strained recently. He makes a mention of the war that was carried out by late Hamlet against Fortinbras, and how the valor and courage of King Hamlet helped him to conquer Fortinbras, and he took over the land, the resources, the people of Norway, but later out of generosity he gave some piece of that land as moiety to the kiths and kings of Fortinbras. But now Junior Fortinbras, whose valor remains untested, has gathered an army and is attempting to wage a war against us, thinking that with the demise of the late king, Denmark might have grown weaker. And this may be the reason that we are having all these happenings in Denmark. However, since they fail to have any conversation with the ghost, Marcellus and Horatio, they decide that tomorrow we will inform Hamlet about these happenings at Elsinore, and we'll ask him to come over here. Maybe the ghost will talk to Hamlet. Now the second scene of first act takes place next morning in one of the rooms in the castle, where we have king, we have queen, we have Polonius, we have Voltimand, we have Cornelius, we have Laertes, we have Hamlet. All these characters are present there, and this is the first gathering in the castle after the death of late King Hamlet. And here, King Claudius, who has taken over the reins from his brother after his demise, would be addressing this gathering. And in his address, he would be mentioning quite a few things. First, he makes a mention of the death of his brother, how dear his memories are to his heart, how fresh his memories are in his mind, and how great a king Hamlet was. He praises him for his valor, for his strength, for his justice. And then he makes a mention of the hasty marriage of his with the queen, who was the wife of late Hamlet. And he said that we did not marry with all the joys of the world, but we married with a heavy heart. We were aware of the fact that our brother has recently passed away. And then he makes a mention of the relationship of Denmark with Fortinbras, and he also mentions here how Junior Fortinbras has been attempting to wage a war against Denmark. And Claudius says that we have written a letter to the uncle of Fortinbras, who unfortunately is bedridden of sickness, and he has got no access to the deeds of his nephew. So we have written to him a letter and given a detailed description of the activities being carried out by Junior Fortinbras in Norway. And for this deed, to pass this message on to his uncle, we hereby dispatch Cornelius and Voltimand. Now here Cornelius and Voltimand would exit, and they would further be advised not to have any other political discussions but what has been written in the letter. Next, King Claudius talks with Laertes, and Laertes asks for permission to go to France, which is granted to him by King Claudius. And then King Claudius and Queen Gertrude talk to Hamlet. Since Hamlet, after the death of his father, is in deep grief and sadness, he is in a dejected state. Claudius and Queen Gertrude, they tell Hamlet not to be in such a melancholic mood, but be a friend to Denmark. Thine father has passed, which is a matter of great grief, and one must express the condolence and one must feel sad. But for human beings can do nothing against nature. They can't change the principles of the nature, and this is something that is the truth of life, and it must be accepted and life must move on. To which Hamlet responds that he will try to follow their advice. After this, there is the entry of Marcellus and Horatio, and we have a conversation between Marcellus, Horatio and Hamlet. Now Marcellus and Horatio, they inform Hamlet about the happenings of past few nights at Elsinore, and they tell him how they have seen an apparition which resembles most to the late king, and they tell him to visit Elsinore at night. Maybe that the ghost will reappear and may have a conversation with him. That night, which is the last scene of first act, Hamlet along with Horatio and Marcellus visits Elsinore. At Elsinore, again at the dead hour of the night, somewhere in the midnight, ghost appears. And when Hamlet sees ghost, he is astonished. He is shocked at the resemblance of this apparition to his father. He attempts to talk to the ghost, and the ghost makes a signal to Hamlet to follow him. Horatio and Marcellus, they forbid Hamlet to follow this apparition, the ghost, maybe it will harm him. Even Hamlet is confused whether he should follow him or not, but eventually he follows. Ghost takes him to another chamber in the castle, and there he tells him about the story of his murder, how he was murdered by his own brother and his wife. He narrates the tale of betrayal of Queen Gertrude, and he tells Hamlet to seek revenge of his murder. Hamlet cannot believe what he has just heard, but he promises the ghost that he will seek revenge. He will take revenge from his uncle and from his mother if this be the case. But Hamlet knows not how to know the truth. He cannot believe as to what this apparition, as to what this ghost has just told him. But he has got no way out to find the truth. What Hamlet decides at this point of time is that he will act as madman from this point onwards, and maybe through his madness he may reach to the truth, he may know the truth. And he tells Horatio that of my madness knows none in Denmark but you, and you should keep this a secret and should not reveal the truth of my madness to anyone whatsoever be the case. And Horatio promises, and he keeps his promise, he keeps his word throughout the Hamlet. Now coming to the second act, the first scene of second act takes place at the room of Lord Polonius, where Laertes, after having been granted the permission to go to France, is leaving for France. But before he leaves for France, he gives few words of advice to Ophelia, wherein he tells her not to fall for love of Hamlet, because he tells her there is a huge class difference between them and Hamlet, and such a relationship between the lord, between the king and the servants never goes well. It proves to be the worst relationship. And Ophelia in response says to Laertes that she will keep his advice close to her heart like a guard, and will never allow heart to fall for Hamlet. Now as Laertes is about to leave, Polonius enters, and he tells Laertes to make haste to go to France, but then he takes 30-40 minutes and he gives his words of advice to Laertes. Later Laertes would exit from the scene. In the next scene, which is again shot at the Ophelia's home, at the Polonius' home, where we find Ophelia in a very shocked state. And Polonius enters and he asks her, "Why are you in such a horrible state?" And Ophelia tells him that I came across Hamlet. Lord Hamlet came to my closet where I was sewing, and he was in a terrible shape. He was not wearing his Hamlet, he was not wearing proper dress, he was in rags, and he was speaking something that I could not understand. He came near me and I was affrighted as if he will harm me, but then he took my hand and took a step backward, then took few steps forward, then dropped his neck, and then in complete unconscious state he left the place. And I fear that Hamlet might have gone mad. And Polonius says that why would he get mad? Have you given him any word? Ophelia says that she hasn't given any words to Hamlet. She is not in love with Hamlet, but there had been signs of Hamlet being in love with her. So Polonius says that must be the reason for Hamlet's madness, that he loves you and you rejected his proposal. That could be the reason of his madness. That is the melancholy of love. And he says, let's go and visit king and queen and inform them about the present state of Hamlet. Later, Polonius and Ophelia will visit queen and king, and they will inform them about the madness of Hamlet. And Polonius says that I tell you in full faith and in full belief that Hamlet is in love with Ophelia and Ophelia has rejected his proposal, and it is because of this that he has gone mad. However, king and queen do not believe what Polonius has to say, but Polonius says that he can prove the point that Hamlet is mad. And he makes an attempt to prove this point. He says that I'll have a conversation with Hamlet, and you make out from that conversation that he is mad. And a scene takes place where Queen Gertrude and King Claudius, they hide behind the curtains, and Polonius and Hamlet are on stage, and Polonius tries to talk to Hamlet, where Hamlet is reading a book, and Polonius asks him as to what the Lord Hamlet is reading, and he says, I am reading words, words, words. And then he says, what do these words mean? What is written in this book? And he says, slanders against these old men. There are bad things written about old men. And this scene ends, and Polonius says, though he is mad, but he talks sense. However, from this scene, nothing is proved about the reasons of Hamlet's madness, as if he is really mad because of his love for Ophelia, or of the rejection of Ophelia. Then, since queen and king, they fail to decipher the real reasons or causes of Hamlet's madness, they call upon Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are the friends of Hamlet. They want them to spend some time with Hamlet, and since they are friends of Hamlet, they may find the reason for Hamlet's madness. They come there, and both king and queen, they inform them about the state of Hamlet, and they order them to spend some time with Hamlet and tell them if they find any clues of the reason for Hamlet's madness. Later, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they come up and meet Hamlet. Hamlet is happy to see them at first, but then is offended by their presence because he hasn't called for them. And he asks them as to why they are in Denmark. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they tell him that they are here to meet him. But Hamlet doubts their presence. He says that no, you are not here to meet me, but I doubt that you might have been sent for. However, initially, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they resist to this argument of Hamlet that they have been sent for, but later they accept that yes, they have been sent for, and they have been sent by Queen in order to know why you are in such a terrible shape. Why are you in such an abject state? To which Hamlet says, I'll tell you why she has sent you. Because in recent days I have not been keeping well. I have not been loving anything that is there in this world. And my heart sinks every time. And Queen and King wants to the reason of this state, but let me tell you that I am not going to reveal my heart to you or to anyone, so yours would be a futile exercise. You better leave from here than make an attempt to know the secrets of my heart. In the third, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they inform Hamlet about some players. When they were coming to Denmark, they came across some players who were also visiting the castle. They tell him that they told these players to see Hamlet, and Hamlet says that call those players and ask them to meet me. As Hamlet meets those players, he tells them as to how good actors you are, and he wants them to perform one of the speeches from Greek mythology regarding the murder of Priam and Hecuba. Now, one of the players amongst them would be playing the role where he would be describing the murder of Hecuba and Priam, and he does this speech with such mastery that while he was narrating the scene, the story of the murder of Hecuba and Priam, there were tears in his eyes. And once he completed his speech, Hamlet is moved by his expressions. And as all the players, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and Polonius exit from the stage, Hamlet is alone. And there we have the first soliloquy from the play Hamlet, where Hamlet would be talking about his own self, where he says that how a coward kind of a person he is. that this player who has got no relationship with Hecuba R prime, and how much attachment did he show to them? How much was he moved by their murder that there were tears in his eyes? Now, had he had the same situation as is that of mine, he would have flooded the stage with tears. But here I am, a coward man who lacks the courage, whose father has been killed, and his father has asked him to take revenge. But he takes no action, but only speaks and talks about the things. And this soliloquy ends here, and we enter into the next act of the play, that is third act, wherein in the first scene, again Polonius would be making an attempt to prove that Hamlet is mad for love of Ophelia, and therefore we have on stage King Claudius, Queen Gertrude, Polonius, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern. We have all these characters are there on stage, and then all of them exit. They hide behind the stage because they make way for Ophelia and Hamlet to have a conversation. But before that could have taken place, Hamlet is again alone, and we have the most famous soliloquy scene from Hamlet, that is, to be or not to be. Now in this particular speech, Hamlet's confusion is doubled. He is not clear in his mind whether he should believe the ghost or he should believe his own heart. He is caught between what we call deep sea and the devil. He doesn't know whether he should act, and then he says that to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles. This is the speech from that particular soliloquy, where he says that should we confront the situations of the life, or should we simply succumb to this? Should we sleep or should we die? But then he says that we cannot do any of these things, because if we sleep, we may have bad dreams. If we die, we don't know what's going to happen to us after death, because there are stories which are not that cool about life after death. So he says that when human beings, they confront the situation like this, and they have these confusions, these suspenses about the life after death, and are the bad dreams which make them to suffer the sufferings of this life. As Hamlet was speaking to himself through this soliloquy, Ophelia enters, and he stops his speech. He says, "Till your heart be revealed to Ophelia." And then Ophelia comes on the stage, and there is the first face-to-face interaction between Ophelia and Hamlet, wherein Ophelia tells him, returns the gift of love to Hamlet, and Hamlet says that he never gave any gift to her. But then she says that thou hast, and he says that no, I have never. And then there is that long conversation between Hamlet and Ophelia, which eventually ends by the fact that Hamlet leaves, and he tells her that he is not in love with her, he is not going to marry her, rather she should go to a nunnery and she should not marry. Hamlet says that I am not going to marry and produce sinners, and all these things happen on stage during the conversation between Hamlet and Ophelia, and the purpose of their meeting, as Polonius has thought, would reveal the fact that Hamlet loves Ophelia, turns the other way around. And as Hamlet exits, all the other characters, including King, Queen, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, Polonius, they appear on the stage, and Claudius tells them that he couldn't find anything like what you have been telling me, that Hamlet is mad for love of Ophelia, but nothing such came up in the conversation between the two. Then Claudius and Queen Gertrude, they ask Rosencrantz and Guildenstern as if you have any idea of Hamlet's madness, but they also tell him that we know he is mad, but of reason we have got no idea. Hamlet did not reveal his heart to us, did not tell us the secret of his madness. But then they inform him, when we mentioned the players, Hamlet was happy. And he said that he would be producing a play, and he has invited your highness, king and queen, to witness, to watch that play. And Claudius and queen, they accept. They accept the proposal, the invitation, and later Polonius enters, and he also tells king and queen that Hamlet is going to produce, to direct a play, and you have been invited for that. The invitation is accepted, and from here onwards, we'll have play within a play. In the next scene, we have the play within a play, and that play is based on the murder of the king. What Hamlet is trying to show is he wants to make players enact the murder of his own father. So we have a player king, a player queen, and a player king's brother, and a player who would be playing the role of a Hamlet. The player queen appears with player king, and she takes player king into to the garden where she makes him to fall asleep, and then she exits. Then comes the deceptor. He drops few drops of poisons in his ears, and the king dies. Then player queen comes on the stage, and she sees player king dead. She mourns, and then there come few mourners, and then the dead body of player king is taken off the stage. The deceptor, that is the brother of player king, he comes and he marries with player queen. And then about these things came to know the son of the player king, and he takes the revenge by putting the poison into the deceptor, into the player king's brother's ears, who is now the king, and kills him and takes the revenge. Now as this play within a play comes to an end, Claudius is offended because he gets an impression that Hamlet has an idea as how his father died, and maybe he knows about my deed, that I had murdered my own brother and married his wife. Now he suddenly leaves the stage, he calls for lights, 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 and then he goes off stage. Now, as he moves off stage, Queen Gertrude knows not what's the reason, but then she wants to see Hamlet, and she sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to Hamlet, asking him to meet her in her closet before he goes to bed. And Hamlet says, I will. Now Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they exit from the scene, and Polonius, rather Hamlet, would again be in that, would be alone, and there would be another soliloquy wherein he says that what should I do now? I'm going to confront my mother. Should I kill her? Should I murder her? Should I commit a deed that nobody has done before? Then he changes his mind and he says that no, I'll not be killing her, but I'll speak daggers to her. I'll speak bad language to her. I'll show her the true mirror of her soul. And then he leaves from there. Now there's a short scene where Lord Polonius meets King Claudius, and King Claudius is in conversation with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Claudius tells them to take Hamlet to England because he cannot bear his madness for long. But then Polonius enters, and Claudius asks Polonius about Hamlet, and he tells him that Hamlet is going to see Queen Gertrude, and I am going to overhear them what they will be speaking. As Hamlet enters the closet of his mother, there begins the conversation, the first and the last and the most significant conversation of the play Hamlet, and it is this conversation which would be an anticlimax of the play, which would reveal everything that was up to this point, leading to the confusions. Now Queen Gertrude asks Hamlet as to why is he behaving in such strange manners, and that his behavior has caused a great amount of sufferings, pain, grief to his uncle, or now turned father, King Claudius. And Hamlet tries to explain to her that the action of his is far more less in sin, in trouble, in badness as compared to what they have done. But Queen in the beginning fails to understand what Hamlet is talking about. But as their conversation continues, as they continue to talk with one another, Queen Gertrude thinks that Hamlet is going to harm her, and she exclaims as if thou art going to murder me. And there she says, help, help. At this point, as Polonius was hiding behind a curtain, he comes forward in order to help Queen. Hamlet takes Polonius as King Claudius, and he would murder him at that point. And as he sees, he finds that it's not king, but he is Lord Polonius, and he would apologize him for his murder. And he says that you had a habit of appearing every now and then, and it is this habit of yours that has led to your demise, that has led to your murder. But make believe me that I had no intent of killing you, I had no intent of murdering you. But still, how fortunate is it that you lived your whole life as a servant, but today you have been killed as a king, because I took you as the king of Denmark. Now, after this point, the conversation with Gertrude and Hamlet continues. Gertrude time and again asks Hamlet as to explain him why is he behaving in such a manner, and then does Hamlet tell her that what she did was bad. He takes a picture of his father out, and he shows the picture of his father and says that look at this father, how great a man he was, how great a king he was, how great a husband he was, and it was you with my uncle who betrayed him, who murdered him, and you married my uncle. And to whom Hamlet says is the worst kind of a person to have lived on earth, is a bad king, is a bad man, is a devil. And then he says that I have showed you your dark soul. And Queen Gertrude begs Hamlet not to speak in this manner, because your words have broken my heart into two. And Hamlet tells her that if this be so, throw the worser part of your heart away and live with the purer one. And as this scene comes to the conclusion, Hamlet sees the ghost of his father. Now, as he is talking to his father, Queen Gertrude is perplexed as to whom does Hamlet speak, and she tells him that thou hast gone mad. Why are you talking to walls? Why are you talking to air? And then Hamlet asks him if thou not seest anyone. And Queen Gertrude says, no, but you and me, I cannot hear anything except what you have spoken to me. And then Hamlet says that, but there is an apparition of my father, the late King Hamlet, your husband, whom you have murdered, whom you have betrayed. And then, as Hamlet leaves the closet of Queen Gertrude, he tells her that since I have told you 100 things, that I hope now at least you will refrain from the activities that you have committed. Now at least you can distance yourself from King Claudius. Now at least you can be more chaste. Now at least you can be more pious by just following what I have said. If there is the slightest of good left in yourself, you will follow what I have said. And then he says that if you restrain it tonight, tomorrow it would be easy, and day after tomorrow it would be easier. After the scene is over, King Claudius orders Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to take Hamlet to England, and he hands over a letter to them, and that is a confidential letter which Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are not allowed to read. And in that letter, we later come to know is written that the King of England should execute Hamlet immediately. Hamlet, along with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, leave for England, but after some time, Hamlet would return back to England. But as he returns back to England, he does not come in open, because he fears now that King Claudius may kill him. Meanwhile, the dead body, the corpse of Polonius, is taken off stage, and when Ophelia comes to know about the death of his father, she becomes mad. Back in France, Laertes also comes to know about the death of his father, so he returns from France in order to take revenge from Claudius, because he thinks that Claudius is responsible for the death of Polonius. But as Laertes reaches Denmark and meets Claudius, Claudius narrates to him the tale, the whole tale of the happenings, wherein he says that he has not killed Polonius, but it was Hamlet who killed Polonius. And now Laertes becomes an enemy of Hamlet, and he is seeking for Hamlet. But then Claudius tells him that Hamlet is not in Denmark, he has been sent to England, and he will be executed in England. Later, it is Queen Gertrude who informs the readers about the drowning of Ophelia. It's not clear in the play whether Ophelia committed suicide or it was an accidental death, but she dies, she passes away. And then we have that famous grave scene, and in that grave scene where Hamlet finds a skeleton of an old joker, and he starts talking about him. It is here when the funeral procession of Ophelia is taken towards the grave. Hamlet is with Horatio, but he is hiding. He is not coming in front. And when he comes to know that this is the funeral procession of Ophelia, he comes to the front, and Laertes sees him. There is a fight between Laertes and Hamlet, but then they are separated, and later King Claudius decides that both Laertes and Hamlet, they will fight in front of the people of Denmark, in front of the King Claudius. And King Claudius and Laertes plan that they will murder Hamlet there. He gives Laertes a sword which is poisoned, and what he also does further is that he says that whosoever will win this duel, will win this fight, he will be given this a glass of a wine as a reward, but even that glass of wine is poisoned. Now, as Laertes and Hamlet, they start fighting. In that particular fight, Laertes is killed and Hamlet is injured with that poisonous sword. Now, as Laertes dies, Queen Gertrude, who was also witnessing the whole scene, thinks that that Hamlet has won the battle, and in a fit of joy, she takes that glass of wine and drinks. Though King Claudius tries to stop her, telling her that this glass of wine is poisoned, but up to that point, Queen Gertrude had swallowed that glass of wine and she dies of that. Now, as Hamlet sees that her mother is dead, he takes the sword and he would murder King Claudius. Now, at the end of the play Hamlet, all the king family, all the family of the king, including King Claudius, Queen Gertrude, Hamlet, Laertes, and others, are dead. The only person who is alive on stage is Horatio, and Horatio, while Hamlet was breathing his last, tells him that he will not leave, he'll also commit suicide. But Hamlet tells him that he should not commit suicide, he's a good man and he should live so that he can narrate the story of Hamlet to the world. Now, as Hamlet dies in the arms of Horatio, Fortinbras, along with English ambassador, reaches at the stage, and it is the English ambassador who would announce that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are also dead. And finding the whole Danish royal family dead, he orders a military funeral for the Hamlet and takes over the reins of Denmark. That was all about Hamlet. That was the plot overview of Hamlet. Thank you for watching, and keep watching the world of literature.